Hello, General Hospital will reveal interesting details on Thursday, March 27, 2025. First, Alexis hadn't merely asked Rick to stop by her office, she had summoned him, and the tone of urgency in her voice left no room for hesitation. She was visibly shaken, her nerves fraying under the weight of what had just transpired. The incident at the parking garage, the one caused by Christina, was far more than a minor accident. It had been a moment of violent recklessness, one that revealed something much darker brewing inside her daughter. Alexis had never imagined that Christina, the child she had raised with so much hope, could harbor such intense anger, let alone directed at someone like Ava. What disturbed Alexis even more was the fact that Christina's actions hadn't been random. She had deliberately targeted Ava. There was no mistaking the intensity in Christina's eyes, nor the calculated way she handled the vehicle before the crash. The garage echoed with screeching tires and the sharp gasp of those who witnessed the near collision. But Ava had seen more than just the aftermath, she had felt it, had looked into Christina's face and seen something disturbingly personal. And Rick, standing right beside Ava at the time, had witnessed the entire thing unfold in chilling clarity. Alexis needed answers, and Rick was the only person who could give them to her. She trusted his ability to observe details, to remain level-headed even in chaos. Her hands had trembled as she dialed his number, the knot in her stomach growing tighter with every ring. Her mind raced with possibilities. Had she overlooked signs of Christina's rage? Had she failed her daughter somehow? More than anything, she needed Rick to confirm whether what she feared was true, that Christina had tried to hurt Ava intentionally. Rick arrived without delay, sensing that this wasn't a conversation that could wait. He had already replayed the scene in his mind several times. Christina had not simply lost control. Her behavior had been fueled by something deeper, more deliberate. The tension in her posture, the locked jaw, the way her eyes narrowed at Ava, it all pointed to a level of animosity that couldn't be dismissed as an emotional outburst. Rick had never seen Christina behave like that before, and it unsettled him just as much as it had shocked Alexis. Meanwhile, Alexis sat behind her desk, barely able to mask the swirl of emotions inside her. Her fear was not just for Ava's safety, but for Christina's soul. She could not fathom how her daughter had come to this point, driven by bitterness, perhaps even hatred. Alexis had fought so hard to create stability, to be a guiding force for Christina through the confusion of adolescence and adulthood. And yet, here she was, facing the possibility that her daughter might be spiraling into something she could no longer control. There was no room for denial now. Rick's presence and his first-hand account would either confirm Alexis's worst fears or offer her a sliver of hope to cling to. But as he prepared to recount the moment when Christina had nearly struck Ava with the car, the heavy silence between them spoke volumes. Alexis braced herself for the truth, knowing that whatever Rick revealed, it would change everything, for her, for Christina, and perhaps even for the fragile bond that still lingered between them. Second, Felicia had unknowingly put Sasha in an incredibly difficult and compromising position. In what was meant to be an innocent conversation, she accidentally revealed that Sasha was acting as a surrogate, an arrangement that had been kept private and guarded for a reason. But the damage didn't end with a slip of the tongue. In her carelessness, Felicia had also dropped Sasha's personal folder, which contained sensitive medical documents, including ultrasound results. These documents ended up in the worst possible hands, Willow's. Willow, already grappling with the emotional weight of her own pregnancy, couldn't ignore what she had seen. The ultrasound images, the dates, and the vague identifiers were enough to spark suspicion. Confusion began to fester in her mind, and a dangerous question took root: could the child Sasha was carrying actually belong to Michael? It was a question that, if not answered quickly and delicately, could destroy multiple lives. The possibility alone was enough to set off a chain reaction of doubt and emotional turmoil. For Sasha, the situation was nothing short of a nightmare. The secrecy surrounding her pregnancy hadn't been about shame, it had been about protection. The child she was carrying, and the people involved in the arrangement, were depending on discretion. With Felicia's careless actions, that fragile layer of security had been ripped away. Sasha felt exposed, vulnerable, and betrayed. The fact that Willow now had reason to question the paternity of her own baby could have devastating consequences not just emotionally, but physically, as stress and uncertainty began to weigh heavily on everyone involved. Sasha's anger was sharp and immediate. She couldn't understand how someone like Felicia, who was usually so nurturing and thoughtful, could act with such recklessness. It wasn't just a breach of privacy, it was a betrayal of trust. Sasha had let Felicia into a sacred part of her life, believing that she would honor the silence and sensitivity required. Instead, Felicia had let her guard down in the worst possible way, and now Sasha was left to deal with the fallout. Though Felicia's intentions were never malicious, the consequences were undeniable. Her mistake had already begun to unravel the delicate fabric of the arrangement, and Sasha knew it was only a matter of time before rumors began to spread, before questions were asked that couldn't be easily answered. She feared not just for her own peace of mind, but for the well-being of the child she carried, and for Willow, who was now walking a tightrope of suspicion and emotional vulnerability. Sasha knew that damage control had to begin immediately. But more than anything, she needed Felicia to understand the gravity of what she had done. This wasn't a harmless accident, it was a serious breach of trust that could endanger lives and relationships. As she sat alone in her apartment, clutching what remained of her privacy, Sasha's thoughts churned with fear, frustration, and a quiet but growing resolve to take control of the situation before it spiraled completely out of her hands. Third, there was something unsettling that Jason couldn't quite ignore. His instincts, long sharpened by years of navigating danger, were now ringing alarm bells every time he crossed paths with Drew. It wasn't just a vague feeling, it was specific behaviors, small yet telling signs that something was off. Drew had been moving differently, keeping secrets, having hushed conversations, and most concerning of all, aligning himself with a newcomer in town, Ezra, a polished and ambitious political figure whose sudden arrival had already drawn whispers. Jason had watched from a distance as Drew and Ezra held a series of discreet meetings in shadowed corners of Port Charles. What troubled him was the air of strategy that surrounded them, the calculating glances, the cryptic words. There was a cold, tactical quality to their alliance, as if they were building something beneath the surface. Jason's anger simmered beneath his calm exterior. He knew his twin too well, and what he was witnessing didn't resemble the Drew he remembered, a man driven by loyalty and a strong moral compass. This version of Drew appeared calculated, detached, and perhaps even dangerous. Ezra, for his part, carried himself like a man used to pulling strings behind the scenes. His influence was growing quickly, and his presence in Drew's life didn't seem coincidental. Jason had seen this pattern before, powerful figures hiding behind polished rhetoric, using charm to manipulate allies and eliminate obstacles. Ezra wasn't just another politician, he was a master of quiet influence, and Drew seemed to be willingly falling under his sway. What disturbed Jason most wasn't the potential for political games, it was the possibility that Drew and Ezra were already manipulating the criminal underworld to serve their goals. There had been sudden shifts in known circles of troublemakers around the city. People who once acted with chaos now seemed unusually focused, as if guided by an unseen hand. Jason suspected that hand belonged to Ezra, with Drew acting as his enabler. The idea that his own brother could be a part of such calculated darkness made Jason's chest tighten with dread. Jason wasn't ready to confront Drew, not yet. He needed more than suspicion, more than instinct. But his unease was growing by the day, and the deeper he looked, the more he feared what he might uncover. This wasn't just about two men working together, this was about influence, control, and perhaps the beginning of something much bigger and more dangerous than anyone in Port Charles yet realized. As the sun dipped below the skyline, Jason stood alone, watching the city he'd spent his life protecting. A storm was gathering. And in the heart of it stood his brother, no longer the man he once knew, but a shadow walking beside a stranger, both cloaked in ambition, secrecy, and something far more ominous. Fourth, Lucky had planned a quiet surprise for Elizabeth, something simple, yet filled with heartfelt meaning. After everything they had endured, from years of uncertainty to the pain of distance, he knew that what she needed wasn't a grand gesture, but a sincere reminder that she was still cherished. When he appeared at her door holding a radiant bouquet of pink roses, Elizabeth was momentarily stunned. The flowers, vibrant and full of life, seemed to carry all the emotions he hadn't been able to put into words. They were his way of saying thank you, for waiting, for believing in him, and for caring when he had nothing left to give. Elizabeth's eyes welled with emotion as she accepted the bouquet, her heart swelling with a mixture of gratitude and long-lost hope. It had been so long since anyone had shown her such tenderness, and coming from Lucky, the man she had loved through so many chapters of her life, the gesture felt even more powerful. There was a quiet stillness between them as they stood together, a moment suspended in time, where the weight of the past slowly gave way to something softer and full of promise. The warmth that bloomed in Elizabeth's chest wasn't just from the gift, it was from the look in Lucky's eyes, the way he regarded her not with guilt or regret, but with quiet admiration. For the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to believe that the love they once shared wasn't just a memory. It was still there, flickering gently, waiting to be nurtured again. And in that moment, surrounded by the scent of roses and the soft hum of the evening, she felt safe, like she had finally returned to a part of herself that had been lost. Between them, there were no more barriers. The emotional distance that had once stretched painfully wide had vanished, replaced by an unspoken understanding. Elizabeth saw in Lucky not just the man who had once broken her heart, but the one who had always tried to find his way back to her. And now, with every lingering glance, every small touch, it was clear that they had found their way back to each other, perhaps not perfectly, but with the kind of honesty that only comes after weathering life's hardest storms. Memories came rushing in, not with sadness, but with a comforting clarity. The night spent talking under starlit skies, the laughter that had once come so easily, the promises whispered during quiet mornings, it all returned, not as distant echoes, but as guiding lights for the future they might still have. There was a softness in Lucky's voice when he spoke, a vulnerability he had once hidden, now laid bare for Elizabeth to see. And she welcomed it with open arms. As the evening stretched on, Elizabeth and Lucky sat side by side, their hands gently entwined. No dramatic declarations were needed, just the simple truth that love, when held onto with patience and hope, could endure anything. The bouquet of pink roses now sat in a vase nearby, a symbol not just of gratitude, but of something rekindled, delicate, beautiful, and very much alive. Finally, Jordan found herself slowly, almost unexpectedly, opening her heart to Isaiah. What had begun as a chance visit to General Hospital turned into something far more meaningful. She hadn't planned to see him there, nor had she expected the quiet wave of emotion that washed over her as she watched him in his element. Isaiah was not putting on a show, his every move was genuine, every word to his patients filled with patience and compassion. There was a warmth in him that felt rare, something steady and grounded, and it reached Jordan in ways she hadn't anticipated. From across the corridor, Jordan watched as Isaiah comforted an elderly patient, adjusting a blanket with careful hands and offering a reassuring smile that seemed to lift the tension from the room. He didn't rush, didn't treat his job as a duty, but as a purpose. Every small act of care, every thoughtful gesture, carried a depth that Jordan couldn't ignore. In those moments, she saw something in him that went beyond kindness. It was a sense of responsibility, of integrity, that made her heart quietly stir. The unexpected visit turned into a quiet observation, one that lingered in Jordan's thoughts long after she had left the hospital. She found herself recalling how Isaiah gently encouraged a child to smile through fear, or how he instinctively reached out to steady a nervous patient's hand. These weren't grand acts, but they revealed so much about the man he was. Jordan, who had always guarded her heart with steel resolve, felt those defenses soften in ways she hadn't experienced in a long time. What touched her the most wasn't anything Isaiah said, it was what he didn't need to say. His actions spoke volumes. He didn't try to impress anyone, yet everything he did left an impression. Jordan had seen strength in many forms throughout her life, but Isaiah's strength was quiet and consistent, rooted in empathy. And for someone like Jordan, who had learned to stand tall through adversity, finding someone who embodied compassion without weakness was deeply moving. As she sat alone later that evening, Jordan couldn't stop thinking about the gentle moments she had witnessed. The sight of Isaiah laughing softly with a patient, or the way he paused to check a chart one last time, just to be sure, these things mattered to her. They reminded her that not all connections needed to be forged through intensity or conflict. Some simply grew from presence, from showing up, again and again, with a full heart. Jordan didn't say anything aloud, not yet. But something had shifted. There was a tenderness in her thoughts now when she pictured Isaiah, a quiet wonder at the possibility of letting someone like him into her life. It wasn't love, at least not yet. But it was something real, something she no longer felt the need to push away. And for the first time in a long while, Jordan welcomed the feeling. Stay tuned for the upcoming episodes to witness the unfolding drama, deep emotions, and unexpected twists that will shape the lives of the characters in Port Charles. The growing bond between Jordan and Isaiah continues to develop in surprising ways. What started as a casual visit to General Hospital turned into a heartfelt revelation for Jordan. Seeing Isaiah care for patients with such warmth and attentiveness touched something within her. His small yet meaningful actions, comforting a scared child, adjusting an elderly patient's blanket, or simply offering a reassuring smile, revealed a man with a gentle soul and unwavering responsibility. For Jordan, who had built walls around her heart for years, these quiet moments were beginning to break through. Meanwhile, Jason finds himself increasingly alarmed by Drew's recent behavior. There's something different about his twin, an edge to his demeanor, a calculated precision to his movements. Jason's instincts, honed through years of navigating danger, are screaming that something isn't right. Those instincts are only heightened when he notices Drew forming a close alliance with Ezra, a new political figure who recently arrived in Port Charles. Ezra presents himself as charismatic and polished, but Jason senses something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface. Their private meetings and secretive dealings suggest a deeper, darker agenda, one that may involve manipulating dangerous individuals to achieve unknown goals. Amidst the rising tension, there's a refreshing warmth in the renewed connection between Lucky and Elizabeth. After years of pain and separation, Lucky surprises Elizabeth with a vibrant bouquet of pink roses, a simple, sincere gesture of gratitude for her unwavering patience and support. The gift stirs something long dormant in Elizabeth's heart, reminding her of the love they once shared. For the first time in years, she feels the warmth of genuine affection, and the emotional distance between them begins to fade. As old memories resurface, of love, laughter, and promises once made, the spark between them quietly reignites, leaving them both wondering if it's finally time to begin again. Elsewhere, Sasha finds herself thrust into an emotionally fraught situation after Felicia makes an unintentional yet damaging mistake. In a careless moment, Felicia not only reveals that Sasha is acting as a surrogate but also drops sensitive medical documents, which are discovered by Willow. The ultrasound results raise dangerous questions in Willow's mind. Could the baby Sasha is carrying actually be Michael's? The implications are potentially devastating, and Sasha is left feeling exposed and betrayed. Her carefully guarded secret is now at risk, and the emotional and physical well-being of the baby she's carrying could be jeopardized by this storm of suspicion and confusion. Each character now stands at a crossroads. Jordan must decide whether to continue opening her heart to Isaiah or retreat into emotional safety. Jason must confront the growing reality that Drew may no longer be the man he once trusted. Elizabeth and Lucky are faced with the possibility of rebuilding a love they once lost, while Sasha must take back control of her life before rumors and doubt unravel everything. And lurking behind the scenes, Ezra's influence continues to grow, casting a shadow over Port Charles as he slowly becomes the most dangerous player in the game. Don't miss the upcoming episodes as these emotional journeys deepen and long-buried secrets begin to surface. The city of Port Charles is on the brink of transformation, where love, betrayal, redemption, and power collide. With every scene, the stakes rise higher, and every decision could change everything. The next chapters promise explosive revelations, powerful reunions, and the kind of storytelling that will keep viewers at the edge of their seats.